All right, well, there are a lot of great stories in the world of MMA this past weekend. This man created one of his own in the main event of Fighting Force 4 on Saturday in the Dominican Republic. Lex McMahon, the COO of Titan FC at 49 years young, made his MMA debut, picked up a first-round rear naked choke submission in 59 seconds. Happy to have Lex back on the program to talk all about it. Welcome back, man. How are you?
I'm doing amazing, man. Thank you so much for having me. And by the way, no one, including me, I think especially me, expected a rear naked choke finish.
Well, I mean, congratulations on the win, first of all. It's one thing coming out of a successful Titan FC event, feeling pretty darn good about it. What does it feel like coming out of an event that you headlined, fought, and got a finish on? Like, was it what you expected feeling-wise, or did it blow away all expectations?
You know, man, I think I'm still processing the feelings. My oldest daughter, Addison, asked me this morning what my favorite part of the whole experience was. And I think it was winning wasn't for me the be all end all of this journey. You know, it was raising awareness about PTSD, raising money to help, stop veteran suicide. And then there was the personal journey that I was going through where I learned a lot about myself through the hard work that was required during that 10-week camp with, just monsters. So I always contended that I was at peace with whatever happened. But the reality is the victory was awesome, not for me, although it was cool for me for sure, but seeing the response of my teammates and my coaches who all invested so heavily into me to help me prepare and get ready over a really long course of time. The guys who videoed everything and edited all the promo stuff, like everybody, I mean, people were in tears, man. And to see that reaction from people off of something that I did, to me, that's what like the best part of the whole thing was to validate the hard work that everybody did and say, hey guys, thank you. Thank you for believing in me.
So, I mean, one thing I wanted to touch on before we touch on everything you just said, fighters that I've talked to over the years, that they talk about that feeling of like the moments right before a fight starts, like that nerves, the adrenaline, the thought process, and like all these different emotions are like wrestling around with each other. And then the ref just says go, and you just have that feeling of, all right, we're in this
Here
now. We're in a fight. What were those last few seconds like for you before the ref said, go, we're fighting?
I've given that a lot of thought. And what I remember feeling was loneliness, complete loneliness. Like I was on my own now. And it was like, I think it took that first big shot that my opponent hit me with to kind of bring me kind of back to reality and just start executing a game plan, because I just remember thinking, oh my God, I've been on this journey with like this whole tribe of people. And now it's just me, man. Like there's nobody that's going to get me out of this situation. If I bit off more than I could chew, the only way out was me fixing it and dealing with it. And, so it was a lonely couple of seconds while the referee and the announcer made a mistake, and he's like, in a 5-round fight. I don't know if you saw it, but I leaned back to my corner and I'm like, make sure this dude understands we're only doing 3 rounds, because my heavyweight butt isn't doing 5. No title on the line here. This is my debut. We're not doing 5 rounds.
Oh, that is so funny. I did notice that watching it back. I was going to ask you about that. The fight was nuts, man. It was insane. It was absolutely wild. Like you mentioned your team putting together a game plan for you, and you talked about what it was like when you got blasted early on. It like flipped the switch on you that, all right, we got to go now. Was that the game plan, just to like get in there and brawl with him, or did just kind of instincts take over?
No, it definitely wasn't the game plan. The game plan, I mean, there were elements of it in there, The game plan was, as I came out, we were looking for my opponent based off of all the research we'd done. We knew he'd throw that big overhand right, and then he'd look to get connected and then grapple from there. So I went out and I was waiting to see if he was going to kind of charge ahead
And if he did, then, I had a kind of a game plan of how to deal with that, using frames and getting away, and then setting up my strikes from there. But he didn't charge out right away. So then that meant I was on the offense. And so I threw, my plan was I'm going to throw a jab. I'm going to go with a 6 low, a nice inside leg kick, step off line, and throw a 2. And that should set me up, with some good momentum. Well, the problem is I threw perhaps the laziest jab I've ever thrown. Like, so half-assed. Like, I throw the jab, and instead of, like, pulling it right back, it just kind of drops down to my side. And as I'm doing that, he fired right away with that overhand right, and he caught me. And so I couldn't, at that point, I stumbled, so I couldn't throw the inside leg kick. I put my hand back, and I started looking for the fence, because I knew, once I hit the cage, I've got to make a change, So I had my hand back, and as soon as I felt the cage, I fired right away. And we got into that kind of quick exchange, that firefight in the 50-50, which is where I did not want to be. I knew I was, I had power, and probably more power than he did, but in a heavyweight fight, anything happens with those gloves. So, but I was in the 50-50, and once I got him where I got an underhook in, I started doing things that we had drilled a lot. Really solid frames, getting the underhook, controlling the head while I was punching. And I knew I had him. Like, even though there was a firefight going on, like, I was beginning to take control pretty quickly. And I then threw an overhand right that caught him. And as soon as that happened, he didn't hit me again. There was an exchange with a couple of knees inside that he got me before that. But once I threw that overhand right, I threw 8 rights and then a left. And then he went down. And then I jumped on the back and did something that no one, including or especially me, expected to happen, which was, not only, submitting it, but like choking him out. Like, who expected that, bro?
It was such a wild fight. It was funny because I was thinking about like the build to the fight. Like right after we did our first interview, I think it was like actually the same day that we recorded it, the video got released of you training with Wonder Boy and Walt Harris and a lot of other guys. And you told everybody in that interview, I got my ass kicked and you're going to see it. And we all got to see it. And I'm sure it stinks in a huge way to get in there and spar and just work as hard as you can. And nothing's working. Like, you're just getting humbled like that, but you find a way to keep going. Your team keeps like willing you to keep on going, but eventually it just starts to click for you, doesn't it? Like, do you remember that moment when you're like, all right, we've turned the corner here?
So, I mean, for me, a lot of it was gas. So in that video, what you see is actually the end of Shark Tank rounds, where I'm especially when I have to go against Muhammad Usman. Muhammad Usman was the final round. And, I'd gone against Ulysses Diaz, Rami Hamed. I'd worked with Wonder Boy beforehand. I'd done pads with Rock, so I was already gassed, man. Like, I was so gassed by the time I got to him. So every bad shot where I'm just not answering and I'm just getting murked, that's all at the end where I'm exhausted. But we did it by design because I wanted to show the honesty of how hard it was. I didn't want to sugarcoat it and show a puff piece that said, Lex is some badass. Because the reality is, man, I'm not. I'm a 49-year-old guy who tried to do something special, and I rose to that occasion. But it happened because I worked really hard to make it happen with really good people. But, I wanted to be honest about what the experience was. And I think people appreciate that because that's what fighters go through, and they just, a lot of people don't show it. I show it because I think people would realize it would be bullshit if I didn't.
What was the feedback like for you? Like,
it was awesome. I mean, obviously there's like, I made the mistake of reading, the comments and there was some guy who said something like, let me see if I can remember right. In my opinion, he doesn't keep his hands up. He's got no future. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm 49 years old, dude. I've already said this is one and done. I'm doing it for, to raise funds and raise awareness. What are you thinking? But, I've been in the sport long enough to realize, hate is going to hate, and you don't give it too much attention. But You know, I mean, listen, it was by design that I trained with the toughest people I could find, and like I really did. And there were days that, you know, in parts of the sessions where, you know, you see where I kind of, it looks like I'm making the comeback. Well, the reality, I was the beginning of the Shark Tank rounds, and I was doing a lot of things really well. And then as I got tired, and then, you know, I faced adversity and I was like, oh crap, nothing's working, you know. But the same thing happened is at the end. I don't know if you saw the last video that we put out. There's one more coming out in the next day or two, I think, that kind of talks about fight week. But we put out a video. It was episode 3, which was Motivation Matters, and it was kind of the period of time after I got back from Abu Dhabi, before I left for the Dominican Republic, and I sparred with Alex Nicholson. PFL, former UFC, like, you know, stud, absolute stud. Man, I'm telling you, he hit me so damn hard. He literally sat me down and just, I mean, had complete control of me. But when he talked to me afterwards, and like, I did nothing well that sparring, and my oldest daughter was there and watched it. And you want to talk about humbling, you know, getting your ass kicked in front of your kid, not easy. But, you know, he pulled me aside and he said, listen, man, like, you're not going to face anything tougher than what we've done to you. That's why you wanted me to come in. And it's true. It's 100% true. And when I got hit and I had to face adversity and I'm bleeding, like, I was ready for it, man, because, you know, I'd gone against Alex Nicholson. I'd gone against Muhammad Usman, Rami Hamed, you know, all those guys.
Did it feel like it was 59 seconds, or did it feel like you were in there for 30 minutes? Like, what was the timing? What did it feel like?
No idea how long. I mean, I had no concept of how long it was. I'm just thankful that it didn't go longer than 59 seconds. I felt good, but I know that, like, at some point, like, that pace wasn't sustainable, and I definitely wouldn't have lasted too much longer at that pace.
I don't know who was more excited, you, your team, your corners, or our good friend Shorty Torres calling the action. The man was losing his mind calling that fight. I assume you've gone back and watched it a time or two, listening to Shorty call the action, because he was all sorts of fired up.
Yeah, he was. And listen, you know, Shorty and I have a tremendous relationship. You know, I found him in Bahrain when he was still an amateur, signed him to Titan, had him become a double champ on Titan, and then put him into the UFC, then started managing him, you know, which I still do. And, you know, sometimes he works for me as a commentator. So we go back and forth where I'm paying him, he's paying me, you know, he's lived at my house. You know, we're super close, man. Like, we're really, really close. And he was one of the guys that helped train me. In fact, fight week, he was the first one there. He flew with me and trained me for 2 days before anybody else got there. So we're just, you know, he was emotionally connected for sure.
Of course, like you had mentioned in our past conversation and in this one, all of this was to raise awareness for our military veterans, veteran suicide. Those numbers continue to rise, and it's unfortunate, but we're doing this through A Hero, and every dime you made from this fight, sponsorships, etc., all go back to that. And you had a goal of $50,000. Is it fair to say that this was a success? Are you happy with how all this played out in the fundraising goals and efforts and such?
Yeah, you know, I mean, by the counts that we're at now, and I still have to pick up a few checks and all of that, but I think we're going to get close, you know, to about 40 or maybe a little bit over. And, you know, I set 50 as kind of an arbitrary goal. I wanted a big number, and, you know, was hoping that we'd get there. If we don't get to 50 and it's close and we're, you know, in the 40s somewhere, hey man, that's great, you know, because every one of those dollars is going to be meaningful and is going to help A Hero with its programming to help save veteran lives.
Maybe people are going back and watching the fight after this conversation. If folks want more information or want to help out, how can they do that, Lex?
Sure, they can visit aherousa.org, and it's /fight4 A Hero. And they can learn about, you know, everything that we do at A Hero, and then can, you know, donate. And again, man, it could be as small as $5, as big as you want. You know, we got some big donations, and we got some donations that were what people could do. And I was appreciative for every one of them, man.
You mentioned it here, talking about the comments and such. I know heading into this fight, this is going to be a one and done. after going in there and experiencing it? Is that still the case, or do you think that itch will surface again?
No. I was 59 seconds damn near killed me, bro. Like, I think it was the aggregate of a 10-week camp with just monsters. I felt great fight week, but between the adrenaline and all that kind of stuff, man, I'm telling you, I'm still sore. I had a headache for 2 days, and my back flying home yesterday was in complete spasm. Like, I had to stand up most of the flight. In the middle of the night, my wife was giving me a massage, and I had a heat blanket on me, and then I got a massage first thing this morning. Look, I'm 49, man. Like, I will always train and participate in mixed martial arts in some capacity in terms of doing it. I'm never fighting again, and it also required a lot, because I wanted it to be credible, right? Like, I wanted it to be real, and I wanted to give the best account of myself and my team as possible, which meant, absolute dedication, which meant about 10 weeks away from my family. And I don't want to do that again. My kids are at the age where they need their dad home. It's not like I'm the next Brock Lesnar, bro. Like, everybody knows that. I'm 49 years old. Even if I went on a tear, it's not like I'm signing to the UFC. Dana's like, dude, what am I, the wheelchair division? Come on. It was a great thing that I did, and I'm super happy I did it. But here's the great thing. I was just telling, again, my older daughter this morning, like, you set goals, right? And you take yourself out of your comfort zone so that you can find out who you really are as a person. And then go set another goal. Do something else that's really crazy so you can continue to extend yourself and find out what you're really capable of. But it doesn't have to be the same thing. So if I go out and fight again, it's the same goal. So I'm going to find some other, cool journey to do, and that will help me, develop as a person and help other people.
One of the other things that you wanted to accomplish with this is you wanted to get a better understanding of what it's like to be a fighter, because you're the COO of Titan, you manage fighters, you've been in the sport for a long time. Do you feel like you've accomplished that? Like, you can sort of see where a fighter is coming from? Maybe not everybody, because everyone's kind of wired differently, but a better sense of it anyways?
I certainly have a much better understanding. I think the only aspect that I don't have a completely intimate understanding of is what it's like to cut weight during fight week, because I didn't have to deal with that. But I've cut weight with, tons of fighters over the years. So I certainly understand how much it sucks and how much it can impact performance. So yeah, I definitely have a sense that, I feel better equipped to work with the athletes that I work with now because of this experience. And an interesting byproduct is, I think that in my effort, in my experience and journey, some of the fighters learn something about themselves and what they're capable of. And I'm going to give you an example. Danny Colazzo, who is a really talented young man, who fought for me on the Titan card the day after my fight, dominating the fight, and all of a sudden he gets dropped, and he's in a tough position, and it looked for a moment like he was going to lose the fight. He comes back, dominates, and wins. I go in like I do after every fight, give each fighter a hug and tell them thank you. And I told him, when I got to Danny, I gave him a hug and I said, hey man, I'm proud of you. This was a tough fight. You grew in this fight. You became a better man and a better fighter because of the adversity. And he looked up at me and he said, Lex, man, all I could think about was, if you could go in there and do it, I had to do it. And I was like blown away by that. But it shows you that the journey that I was on was not about me, man. It was for other people.
That is amazing. That had to make you just feel like $1 million. You must have been
incredible,
kind of holding back tears. I would have been holding back tears in a moment like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think as you've seen throughout the, all the videos and stuff that have come out, like, I'm an emotional, passionate guy. And so, I mean, I do cry. Like, it, I'm a big teddy bear outside of this big, burly, tattooed, rough looking exterior, right? Like, I really am somebody who's passionate. And so for me to cry, like, it's not uncommon. And not that I didn't cry with Danny at that moment, but I definitely have gotten choked up. And it meant a lot to me when Danny shared that with me.
Last thing before I let you go, I know you're hanging out with the fam here. You mentioned Titan FC 65 went down on Sunday. Danny got a nice win. Michael Graves got a win in just over a minute. However, he missed weight, got stripped of the title, so that was kind of unfortunate. Juan Puerta gets another win. have to assume that phone's going to be ringing soon. At least it should be at this point. But
I hope so. That's 20 wins for Juan. He's looked great in all of his wins. I hope so, man. I really hope. Devin Dixon got a dominant victory by a calf kick.
Yes, that was nasty.
And him, Devin Dixon, Danny Colazzo, Mike Graves and Juan Puerta are the generation of fighters that have helped me over the past few years really build Titan. But their time is like imminent, where they should be progressing to that next level. I mean, frankly, they should have already. But Danny Colazzo, Ryan Hughes, who fought on the Fighting Force card, but is one of my fighters. Devin Dixon, those guys, I mean, those are studs that train with absolute monsters at big gyms, and they're going to be our future. And then they're, soon, a year from now, a year and a half from now, they'll be in the UFC doing their thing, I'm sure.
Man, congratulations. Well done, Lex. I'm just an amazing story, amazing thing that you have done here. You did it, man. You did it. You have a lot to be proud of. You did something that most people wouldn't do, and you should be very, very proud of that, man. All the best to you, sir. Happy holidays to you and the family, man.
Thank you so much, Mike. I appreciate you, man. I appreciate all the support you guys have given this journey and me throughout the years, man, of my career. So same to you with a great holiday, bro.